Hey guys, it's Sandro here, and today's video will hopefully be a fantastic and simple guide to take you through the steps in deep cleaning or decontaminating car paint. Now just to be clear, the reason why we periodically deep clean or decontaminate car paint is that over time, certain grime and particles get embedded and fused to the surface, where simply washing the paint won't remove them. What's more, many of this environmental, mineral, and traffic contamination can and will continue to eat its way right through the paint, resulting in deep etchings, surface rust, and ultimately paint failure, as we can clearly see in many sections of this panel, which is honestly beyond restoration and will require a costly bare metal sanding and respray. But for the purposes of this video, this panel should be a great example to demonstrate this process, as it is so filthy and neglected, plus it already displays what can and unfortunately too often happens when car paint is completely neglected. Now apart from that, this paint deep cleaning process should also be used prior to compounding and or polishing car paint, also known as paint correction, as well as prior to waxing, sealing or coating car paint, also known as car paint protection. The reason being is that if we don't remove all the paint's surface contamination prior to paint correction or paint protection, those steps will be largely degraded, leading to poor results. Now, no single video tutorial can cover everything about any area of detailing, which is why I've got hundreds of videos on this channel going into more depth on many detailing topics. So if you want to see this process from start to finish over an entire vehicle, or want to dive a little deeper into some other areas, there's very little I haven't covered on this channel. With that said, I hope this will be a great and valuable guide to explain the what's, how's and why's of car paint decontamination to get you started in the right direction. There's a bit to cover here, so let's get to it. Throughout this video, you will see me using various products from various brands. They are what I tend to personally use, and I will list them on screen and in the description box. But I want to be clear that you don't need to use exactly what I'm using. So I'm not going to focus on individual products or brands in this video, but rather categories of products that serve specific purposes, and you can go off research, source what's available in your area and fits your own budget. I'll also quickly mention here that I will be working on just half the panel, so we can see a true representation of a before and after result. The first vital process is washing and decontaminating the paint. In essence, the goal here is trying to remove everything from dust, dirt, traffic films, mineral deposits, and environmental fallout particles that are sitting above and bonded to the paint surface, and achieving that in the least aggressive manner. So that's what we're trying to do, and this is why. If we don't remove this foreign matter prior to paint correction, many of those particles won't come off even with polishing, and many more of them will get embedded into our polishing pads, causing scratches and making it difficult to achieve the best finished result. And the reason we want to achieve this stage in the least aggressive manner is because if we scratch or damage the surface even further here, it will mean permanently removing more paint or clear coat than is necessary. How we go about this is by using appropriate products and methods to safely remove the contamination in stages. Step 1 is a touchless pre-clean. Swirls and scratches are created when we physically push dust, dirt, and other grime over the paint. So the more of this contamination we can remove touchlessly, if that's a word, the more we'll avoid creating new scratches or even making existing scratches even deeper. We achieve the best outcome here by using a strip car wash detergent / snow foam that's ideally alkaline leaning and just a little bit more capable than your standard car wash soap. We apply it to a foam cannon, Allow it to dwell for as long as possible, usually 5 to 10 minutes or just before it entirely dries, and then we follow up with a slow moving and precise pressure rinse down. Don't just wave your pressure washer randomly all over the panel. Keep it close, about a foot away, and use it almost like a paintbrush to clean methodically. I won't dwell on this point, but I want to be clear that just going through the steps and motions isn't going to guarantee success in any aspect of this whole process. So it's not just about what you do, it's about how or how well you do it. Good technique is vital. The next step is a physical hand wash. The category of product I recommend here is an acid-leaning car wash detergent. In a nutshell, the previous alkaline detergent used tends to be superior at degreasing and breaking down dirt and road films, whereas this acid-leaning detergent tends to be superior at breaking down mineral deposits, limescale, and even light rust and surface tarnish. So there's a real complementary cleaning benefit in firstly using an alkaline followed by an acid-leaning detergent to effectively treat all the contamination on the paint surface. I also recommend using a good microfiber wash mitt as it has an increased cleaning ability and tends to draw dirt particles into its fibers away from the surface, making microfiber an incredibly safe and effective material to wash with. We then want to inspect the paint both visually and physically. Now, if the vehicle is relatively new or well maintained, a good intensive wash can be enough to get it perfectly clean. But on paint this neglected and weathered, it's almost certain there will be more embedded particles we can see or at least hear and feel by running our hand or better still, a glove over it. These particles, such as environmental fallout or airborne particles, as well as potential tar and mineral deposits and so forth, are fused to the paint and won't come off by simply washing the paint. This is where a more specific chemical and mechanical decontamination process are beneficial to help safely soften, dissolve, and remove these stubborn particles, so let's have a look at that. I want to keep things simple in this video, so I'm using a multi-purpose, all-in-one decontamination chemical that treats a variety of environmental and traffic contamination, and what's more, it also contains a clay lubricant, so I'll be both chemically and mechanically decontaminating the paint in a single step. I'll start by applying a nice even layer of the chemical over the surface, give it a few minutes to start loosening and softening the particles, in which you may see a purple color reaction as it dissolves the metal particles, and even a browning color as it dissolves other traffic grime. I'll then use my synthetic clay towel with light pressure and short back and forth motions to pluck and remove the larger particles, and once I'm done with the section, I'll rinse both my clay towel and the paint down. The way you know the paint is free of contamination is that it feels smooth with no more tiny bumps, and it also sounds silent with no scratchy sound as you run your hand over it. Something else to mention is that sometimes it can also be beneficial to use some more specific individual chemicals. So let's say you have dramatic water spots and limescale deposits on the paint. Maybe you live near the ocean. In that case, using a dedicated, more acidic water spot remover could be a great added treatment. Or perhaps you have significant tar deposits. Maybe it's a tracked car. In that case, using a dedicated tar remover will be a beneficial added step. Every car is a little different, but the goal remains the same. We want to get the paint completely clean and bare, and some vehicles will require more attention. Now once again, the next step should be inspecting our results. If the surface is truly clean and bare, it should feel smooth but slightly tacky with flat and pooling water behaviour. I can also see on this panel that I've removed quite a bit of surface rust in some chipped areas, but there's some other stronger embedded etchings and defects remaining that will need to be addressed during paint correction. We can then dry the paint with a microfiber towel and/or blown air, and the final step should be an IPA wipe down. This is basically using an isopropyl alcohol dilution which will remove any lingering chemical residue without leaving any of its own residue behind. Spray it directly on the surface, use a first cloth to wipe it in, and a second cloth to buff it streak free. Now the paint is truly clean, bare, and ready for a successful paint correction process. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. This video was really about understanding what paint decontamination is, why we do it, and how we go about it. Hopefully you can see after pulling the panel inside that although this paint is completely trashed, it's still pretty amazing what just an in-depth cleaning process can do to restore a little gloss and saturation even without polishing it. Thanks for watching. It would be great if you could give the video a like, drop a comment, share it around, and if you'd like to help support this channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/CCAD, in which I'll have a link to in the description box. Or you can also hit the thanks button below the video, and thank you everyone for all the support so far. Now, as I just mentioned, that was the whole decontamination video done and dusted. But for some of you that may be interested, I decided to do a little extra bonus footage here. Now, I firstly want to be clear that if a customer rolled in with paint in this specific condition, I wouldn't be attempting paint correction, and I'd advise them to save that money and put it towards repainting the panel, which is something I've done many times. But maybe this additional footage will help explain more specifically why some badly weathered paint can absolutely be restored to an almost like new condition, and why some other badly weathered paint cannot. Now, this won't be a polishing guide explaining why, how, and what I'm using and doing. If you want to see that process shown and explained in a great step-by-step video, I'll add a link here or in the description box. All I want to do is quickly show you here what can and can't be restored. So in this first test section, I'm performing a light to moderate paint enhancement or one-step polish. Now, having a look at the results, it's absolutely a great improvement with most of the oxidation and fine swirls removed and the gloss restored. I'll talk more about the results later, but for now, let's do another test section where I'm going to use a heavy cutting compound and pad, basically cutting the paint back more aggressively to remove more of the defects. Having a closer look at the results here, I can see that compared to the last section, there is more haze and less gloss, which is normal after a heavier cutting stage. But it's also indisputable that far more of the defects have been removed here. In fact, most of the swirls and scratches have been successfully removed. But there's one defect here that's barely been affected, which is the heavy etchings most likely caused from bird or bat poo and bugs sitting on the paint for long periods. Let's move a little further here at the bottom section and do a two-step process, firstly performing the cutting step I just did on the middle section, followed by a second lighter polishing step to remove the haze and amplify the gloss. Right here, this is ultimately the best result I'm going to be able to achieve on this paint safely. And look, it is far better than it was, but at the same time, it's just not a finish I'd be comfortable charging a client for. As I mentioned, I'd rather they put that money into having the panel repainted. And for those of you that are curious or may think, why not just sand or cut the paint back further even more aggressively, this little dark patch here is what we call a burn mark, meaning we've gone through the paint or clear coat to reveal the base coat or primer coat beneath. That's what happened here when I decided to go a little bit further. In a nutshell, it's not the fact that the paint is swirled, scratched, scuffed, faded or oxidized that's the issue, as almost all those defects could be removed on the paint and have it restored. It's plainly and simply the heavy etchings on this paint that are most likely bird or bat poo, but possibly also even bug and heavy water mineral deposits that have etched this paint and placed it beyond a reasonable paint correction result. Add to that the fact that the paint has lost much of its thickness, I'd say due to UV damage and a lack of paint protection, and this is the result. If I was to correct this paint, I would just do a very light and very quick polish to restore gloss and leave it at that. The main reason I wanted to add this bonus footage is to highlight just how damaging etchings can be to car paint. Because unlike scratches that occur and are then done with, etchings keep on eating their way into the paint until you remove the contamination that's causing them. And 9 times out of 10 in my experience, it's etchings that cause the most significant surface damage to car paint. Well, that is truly it guys for this video. I hope it was helpful and I'll see you in the next one.